America was not built on fear. America was built on courage, on imagination, and an unbeatable determination to do the job at hand. Those are the words of Harry S. Truman, 33rd President of the United States. During his inauguration, Joe Biden, 46th President, pledged to repair alliances and re-engage with the world once again. We will lead not merely by the example of our power, but by the power of our example. We will be strong and trusted partner for peace, progress and security. How hollow those words seem today. Rather than act as the world's global police, abandoning its role in what Trump dubbed the forever war, America is more obsessed with its own relentless internal battles. Joining me now is Rear Admiral Mike Hewitt, US Navy retired officer and the CEO of IP3 International. Mike, are you devastated to see what is going on in Afghanistan today?
Hello, Alex. Good afternoon. I am. I think we're witnessing one of the worst foreign policy decisions in our lifetime. And in many ways, it's a failure of our role and responsibility. This was a political decision. It wasn't one made on conditions on the ground. It wasn't one based on the 19 years of commitment in Afghanistan. And I hear this term, America's endless war. I think what we had in Afghanistan was America's endless peace. We had a small footprint on the ground along with the UK. We were maintaining stability. We were giving the Afghan military and the Afghan government the tools and time they needed to succeed on their own. And we just simply walked away. There is no doubt in my mind that the intelligence community was completely open and transparent to what we have just seen in Afghanistan. And I can't help but think this was completely unnecessary. And we've condemned these people, particularly the women, to another generation of genocide and the most radical version of Sharia law. The Taliban has declared victory in Afghanistan after 2 weeks. This is really, I think, as I said, one of the worst foreign policy decisions we've seen in our lifetime.
Yeah, the Taliban managed in 2 weeks to reverse something that took 20 years and $1 trillion to construct. Why on earth has America not tried to go back in there and sort this out before it's too late?
I don't think it's too late. And I think what you're seeing happen, again, I think the spin by the administration is really in full force right now and not reality on the ground. You're watching 4,000 American troops go back in to secure our embassy. It really is an indication of a diplomatic failure anytime you close an embassy or shutter the doors of an embassy. And I don't know how you can measure that any other way than a complete failure. I do believe we have a chance to reverse this, along with the UK. I do believe what Tobias Ellwood and Tom Tugendhat and others have said, along with Tom Cotton in America, is that let's get back in there. Let's push the Taliban back out. It will not be easy. But just last week on your show, some of your guests were talking about some of the provinces that were failing and trying to downplay that as a rural province that really doesn't matter. Almost every guest a week ago said Kabul will never fall. And look at where we are today. So I don't think it's too late, Alex. I think we have the opportunity to step back in and reverse this tragic foreign policy decision.
You've been a military strategist at the very highest level. You've overseen campaigns. You've had a very direct focus on matters geopolitical. But the situation we have now is the Taliban have taken over Kabul, they've taken over the presidential palace. They're in talks with Iran and Russia and China. They're acting as the government in power. I mean, how easy is it going to be now to dethrone them? Surely that will be a bitter and bloody battle.
It really will not be easy at all. And I think we could have foreseen what Russia and China and Iran were going to do as we abdicate our authority and our responsibility. I've listened to certain guests talk about this is going to be a challenge for Russia and China. I see it exactly as the opposite. What Russia and China are doing is convincing the international community that you can no longer trust America. You can no longer trust the United Kingdom. That democracy in many ways is a failed experiment. And that's really what we have created in this conversation. We need to understand strategically what Afghanistan means to us, not tactically. And if we don't step in and reverse the trend with Russia, China, and Iran, to picture Iran standing next to the leader of the Taliban, who, by the way, came from Gitmo, is really a frightening scenario. And I want to add that the American people and the people of the United Kingdom don't elect leaders based on going to war. We elect leaders based on making hard, right decisions. And I think I've heard many of your guests compare today to 1975 with the fall of Saigon, or 1979 with the fall of our embassy and the capture of our American citizens in Iran. And what did we see at that tipping point? We saw the emergence of new leaders, Ronald Reagan, Margaret Thatcher. I believe we're at that same tipping point right now. And we have to find the leadership that's ready to make the hard decisions with respect to our two countries.
Yeah, I mean, is America in an existential crisis of its own? And if so, how much is Afghanistan, the situation there, going to affect America's reputation on the global stage?
I think it has immensely affected our reputation on the global stage. I can't imagine what it means for our allies, such as Taiwan, South Korea, NATO, and our other allies that depend upon America. And we've talked a little bit about American exceptionalism. American exceptionalism is not a bumper sticker or a term that you hear in social media. It's actually something that the framers of our Constitution instantiated as doctrine. The world needs American exceptionalism right now. When I think back to the G7 just a few months ago, and we go to the G7 and we kind of lower our standard instead of elevating our standard, I think that was a huge mistake. And I think the world needs to wake up to what is going on right now. And I think America and American leadership will step up. I really do. I think in times of crisis such as this is when we see the best of our American people and the best of our leadership. And let me add that our special relationship with the United Kingdom is more important than ever. And I've heard great voices just in this last week that we need to go back. And I think we need to echo those voices. And I really do believe that the time, push the politics aside and let's make the right decision about Afghanistan, because it is sending a signal to the global community.
Yeah, I mean, you said very optimistically about America needing the right leaders, and perhaps we're on the dawn of having that again, in the same way that a crisis ushered in the Reagan era. But we have Joe Biden in the White House. Is he the man to do this?
It's hard to say what this administration is going to do now that they've really been put to the test, now that we've seen their decision-making on the border, internationally with foreign policy. We've really seen China run roughshod over them over the last 6 months. So this is their test. This is their time. Are they going to step in and reverse this trend? Are they going to continue to stick to their political rhetoric and continue to argue that there's nothing to see here in Afghanistan? I really find it incredibly disingenuous to compare the fragile peace that we had on the ground 30 days ago to the real tough fighting of 10 years ago. There is no comparison. We had a fragile peace in Afghanistan. And when I think about the decisions that the Obama administration made in Iraq, when we pulled those final US and UK troops out, what that created was al-Baghdadi and the formation of ISIS. And then they moved into the safe haven of Syria, and ISIS became a 30,000 person terrorist organization that we needed to combat and fight. I am very concerned that we may see that again now in Afghanistan. And all we need to do is compare what happened with ISIS and how quickly that happened to really raise up the importance of going back in and stabilizing as best we can that region.
Yeah, couldn't agree more. Rear Admiral Mike Hewitt, thank you ever so much for joining me and sharing your experiences and expertise.